On July 24 this year, Assistant Treasurer David Molina stated in Parliament that government has secured access to banking services in regional Australia, and I quote, "Banks have a responsibility to regional communities and we're holding them to it." That was 3 weeks after Bendigo Bank announced the closure of 10 branches, including 5 that are the last banks in town. One of these was Queenstown in Tasmania, where the branch was the last branch on the entire west coast. The closest bank is now 150 kilometres away, but it's a 4-hour round trip to get to a bank. On the same day, the Assistant Treasurer's speech, Bendigo Bank further announced the closure of 28 branches, 17 of which are the last genuine banking services in their towns, including Cunderdin in my home state of WA, with a 120-kilometre trip to their closest branch. What has the government said or done about Bendigo Bank's closure spree? Did the government talk to Bendigo Bank about it?
I think it sounds like more of a question for me, Senator Whitten, than the officials. We'll come back to you about... I don't know what the engagement between the government and Bendigo Bank post their decision was. I'm very happy to provide that on notice. But of course the government's approach here, as I think you indicated in your question, has been about securing that moratorium on bank closures until I think the middle of 2027, strengthening the bank at post capacity. But we're absolutely aware that not only is there a question in regional communities where people have to travel for banking services, particularly people who require cash, or to make deposits, or to do all of the things that people have a legitimate expectation that they are able to do. But of course, the decades of bank closures that happened prior to that mean that not only are people apprehensive in communities about what a closure might mean for them, but there are people who are experiencing challenges in this area and have been for quite some time. So the bank at post reforms are designed to strengthen, doesn't completely resolve all of those questions. And then the moratorium is an important step too, and government will continue to examine the approach here.
Okay. Given the taxpayer-funded privileges banks enjoy, including the financial claims scheme guarantee of their liabilities, which materially boosts their bottom line, should they be expected to provide a service to rural and remote communities in exchange?
Well, Senator, that's asking for an opinion. I would just note we do have a major bank levy that applies to the 5 biggest banks in Australia, and partly reflects some ways that you can think about it as it relates to the market perception that they'll be seen as too big to fail. So there is a mechanism in the system that actually levies the major banks.
Yeah, I think the question is taxpayers fund something for banks and they'd like to see something in return, particularly in rural and regional communities.